Our devotional reading today comes from Luke chapter 19, beginning with verse 28. And when he had said these things, he went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. And when he drew near to Bethphage and Bethany at the mount that is called Olivet, he sent two of his disciples, saying, Go to the village in front of you. When you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, on which no one has ever sat. On which no one has ever sat. Now that will be an unusual donkey, okay? Nobody's ever sat on it. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, Why are you untying it? You shall say, The Lord has need of it. Most of our lives, we bring our needs to God. We talk to God about our needs. But there are times that God talks to us about His needs. Now you say, well, Pastor, that almost sounds wrong to say that God has a need. Well, in one sense, He doesn't, because He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. The earth and the fullness thereof is His. I mean, everything belongs to God. But then He entrusts it to us as managers or as stewards, whichever word you want to use. So there are times when He looks at us and He sees the things, because everything belongs to God. He looks at us and says, there's something that I need. I'd like to use it. It might be the boat that He wanted to use that belonged to Peter so that he could teach along the shore of Galilee. And here, He needed a donkey that had never been ridden on. Now, the reason it had never been ridden on is extremely important. Numbers chapter 19, verse 2 says that on which a yoke has never come. Deuteronomy 21, verse 3 said there has never been worked and has never pulled in a yoke. You never brought a sacrifice to God. You never brought something sacred to God that had been used for something else. You only brought God the brand new. You brought God an oxen that had never been worked. You brought God a goat that had never been worked. Whatever the animal, it could never have been used for regular purposes and then given for the sacred. God said, you only bring things that have been designated as the sacred. Now, this donkey was not only going to be used for the entrance of a king, because that's how the kings entered a city in Jesus' day, but it was bringing in the God King, bringing in Messiah. It was going to be used for a sacred purpose. So this donkey was very, very unique. I mean, there might have been one donkey in the whole area like this that had never been ridden. And it needed to be set aside. And God in His wisdom had made sure everything was prepared so that Jesus would ride in as the God-man on a donkey that had never been ridden. The God King. The donkey being used for sacred purposes. But to me it's beautiful. Just tell Him the Lord had needs of it, and He'll let it go, and He did. But Mark brings out this, and tell Him it will come back shortly. Verse 3, Mark chapter 11. The Lord has need of it and will send it back here immediately. In Jesus' day, the Romans had been occupying for several generations the land of Israel. And under Roman law, they had the right to commandeer. They could commandeer you as a person to carry somebody's load, carry one of the soldiers' load. And Jesus said, if they want you to walk with them 1 mile, go with them 2. Don't complain about it. Don't fight with this commandeering thing. But they also had the right to commandeer food or anything that they needed. So like if they were moving through a village or moving through a city and they had no food, they could commandeer any of the food and they never had to bring it back. They could commandeer any animals and never return them. Jesus said, when I borrow something from you, even though it's already mine, when I tell you that I need something, I will return it immediately. Now that's a promise. When God asks you to sow a seed in your church, when God asks you to give an offering, can you trust Him that He will always give it back, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over? Christian, listen to me. God is not a taker. God is a giver. God does not commandeer and take away what He has entrusted to our stewardship. He says, I need this for a while. And we let Him use it. We freely give the money that He has given us because we know He will give it back immediately. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over.